Okay. Hi, everybody. My name is Crystal Jones. I'm with the Department of Arts and Culture with the City of San Antonio, and I want to welcome you all here for this wonderful event. We are joined by our friends at the Texas Music Office to talk about what makes a music-friendly community. This is really exciting for San Antonio because I think everyone's here because we know that San Antonio is definitely that, music-friendly. We have fantastic talent. We have fantastic venues. We have a wonderful history that's especially going to be recognized during our tricentennial year next year. So we're very excited about this, and we're excited to have Brendan Anthony. He's the director of the Texas Music Office. He's going to talk about what makes a music-friendly community, what this initiative is with the Texas Music Office, and then we'll have some other speakers as well. So Brendan, if you'd like to come on up.
Y'all hear me okay? Yep, that's good. Thank you, Crystal. Thanks for all the hard work you've done pulling this together. Thanks to all of you for the time you've taken out to come join together today to kind of hear this message. It's a message we're taking around the state. We think that Texas is a truly unique music industry landscape, and we at the Texas Music Office have worked really hard to help change the conversation about what it means to be a music industry economic sector, right? We know how cool Texas music is. If you go around the world and you tell someone you're from Texas, they're going to quote a band that they love, that they've heard of from Texas to you. They're going to tell you how cool the Alamo is. We know that there are some very, very cool cultural components around the music industry. But what we need to do, and what the Music Office, the Texas Music Office, is trying very, very hard to do, is tell an economic impact story. And we've put it into some numbers. So our 2017 economic impact study is available at texasmusicoffice.com. If you search it, it's one of the main boxes on the website. Nearly 100,000 permanent jobs, nearly $330 million in tax revenue to the state. And that's a huge contribution, folks. Texas is a diverse economy, continues to diversify, and this is an economic sector that needs to be treated with respect and supported. And the easiest way to begin that process, to begin talking about it in terms that other industries use to describe themselves. And those are jobs numbers, honestly. Not to take away from the incredible cultural impact that music has in the state that we all contribute to here, but we have to begin talking in terms that other folks understand. And so we're working hard at the Texas Music Office to shift that conversation while remaining true to what makes the Texas music industry so important, which is the cultural impact, of course. How many people in this room have heard of the Texas Music Office? That's awesome. I'd love to see that. I stand in some rooms and give some talks to folks who I think ought to know about it, but really don't. And that's okay. We're here to educate. I've spent a lot of time as director traveling around the state talking to people about what it is we do. This is your presentation. This is for San Antonio. This is for the people in the room. So if you'd like, I can run through a brief overview of what the office does. If you'd rather not, I can jump right into what I think it means to be a music-friendly community and what the office does. So if you all want me to walk through what the office does, I'll do it. Is that cool? Okay, great.
Go for it.
Awesome. All right, so the Texas Music Office is a nearly 30-year-old state agency. We're in the office of the governor. So we're a trustee program, a line item in the governor's budget. We are an agency that oversees the growth and the development of the Texas music industry, right? It's an amazing job. I was a touring musician for 15 years. I've recorded on, a lot of records. I started touring when I was a teenager. Every nickel I've ever made in my life as an adult has been from the music industry, from recording music, producing music, touring and making money, selling merch online for folks through a company I helped start in Austin called One Live Media, selling merchandise and e-commerce online, international fulfillment. I've always worked in the music industry since I was a kid. And to be able to do this job for the state, for the industry that's literally given me everything I have in the professional sense is a real honor for me. I've been here about 3 years now. I was appointed by the new governor in 2015, and I took a little while to figure out exactly what the office did at that point. And then I did some looking around to see what else we were capable of, what else the office could do, what other communities we could get involved in. We're an Austin-based office because we're at the Capitol, right? But not everything in the Texas music world revolves around Austin. Austin is a fantastic live music capital of the world, right? It's a great marketing tool, but that doesn't tell the story about what's happening in all of our other communities around the state. So, ground level, bottom line, without knowing what I was doing necessarily, I started traveling around to communities around the state and really trying to plug in with folks who are actually making the machine work. Folks who own venues, folks who are writing songs, folks who are producing, folks who are managing, folks who are performing for essential artist services that kept those numbers I mentioned earlier moving upward. We need to be in the lives of folks around the state. So there's my spiel about the overall office and what it does and how proud I am to be here. I'm going to try to get this clicker to work, but I'm going to send Steve back to our computer in case it doesn't. It may not. Yeah, probably not. So, Steve, if you want to hit a right arrow when you get back there. So, one of the very first things we did was expanded our social media presence. We didn't do social media at all before I got to the office. And we know that the best way to communicate in a mass sense to folks who are involved in the music industry is to get involved with what they're telling us, right? So we have to be able to absorb information and tell other people about what folks around the state are doing. So I'm proud of what we've built in terms of social media presence. So I would encourage all of you to follow our social media channels. I think they're important because it gets you another conduit to tell your story to the rest of the state, to the rest of the world. We've really garnered a lot of following in the past couple of years. We're proud of that. We continue to try to make it better. So follow us, help us make it better, because we're trying to tell your stories, not ours. We're not agenda-based. We're trying to tell people's stories from around the state. Click it once. All right, so what do we do? Click it again. Okay, so one of our core functions is we try to specialize in new business development, which means I spend a lot of time in Nashville, New York, and LA talking to folks about expanding essential artist service businesses into the state that don't exist today. As songwriters, many of you know that if you're going to form a personal relationship with a performance rights organization, for example, you need to go do that somewhere else today. You need to go camp out in an artist writing room in Nashville, and you need to form your personal relationship with your performance rights organization representative, BMI, ASCAP, CSAC, GMR, whatever you're going to use, in person, right? Because you can't do it in Texas because they have 7 offices around the country and they don't have one in Texas. We're going to try to change that. And that's the same for many other companies that we have on our list. This is a multi-year process. These folks are hearing from us for the very first time, but we're having success. We just moved a new vinyl plan to the state. We hope to add to that list every day. But like I said, this takes years to happen, but it's something we focus on extensively. I'm going to click down to the next couple. Music industry resources. So for many, many years, our office was known to folks around the state and around the country as those guys who published the music book, where you could go and white page through every music business and every music industry professional in the state in one book, right? Well, that's a lot of paper. And in '06, they yanked that program and everything went online. What we've tried to do is expand upon that unparalleled resource and keep it as accurate as possible daily so that you can go to the site today, you can search silo by silo and find the connections you need to do a better job. If you're starting out and you need key components to your business and you need to connect with them, you should try considering going through our office to do it. We've worked really hard to boost our data accuracy rate from the mid-70s to the mid-90s. And that's pretty solid considering we have nearly 20,000 listings on this site. We're also a personal touch to that process. We know a lot of people just by virtue of having worked in this industry for a long time, and we work really hard with folks who connect to us personally so that they can find the connections they need in-state, out-of-state, to do their job better. All right, next one, Steve, thanks. All right, we're on music-friendly communities, so we're going to skip through this one. But I spent a lot of time around the state trying to form these offices, and I'll get to that here in just a second. Next one, buddy. All right, well, here's the most fun one for me to talk about because as a kid, I grew up playing violin in school. I did Suzuki on violin, and I moved up through public school, and I thought that was possible everywhere. I thought that you could go to any public school and get taught how to play violin or piano or guitar, and that's because I grew up in a school, public school, that luckily, by the grace of whatever, had some resources to give to kids who wanted to pursue music as a core part of their curriculum. Well, many, many can't, as we all know. So we run a license plate grant that if you're willing, we'd love to have you sign up for. You spend $30, you get sent a really awesome license plate that we help design. This is Cam from the Suffers over in Houston helping us model one of them. $22 of every $30 you spend on these license plate goes to a grant fund that we use to give instruments and lessons to kids who need them to continue their education. We use them to fund programs that take music programming into underserved communities. So this is a real love project for us. We're so glad we get to do it, but we need more money to do it. And we need more exposure for the program so we can give the money away. I never thought I'd have problems giving money to folks who wanted to put an instrument in kids' hands, but it turns out that's a thing too. So we need people to tell people about this program, and we need people to buy into it. So I'll get off the box, but that's another thing we do. All right, next one. All right, so this statement is available on our site, and I won't bore you by reading, but essentially it is our encapsulated belief that it is vital that we form more intentional music-friendly communities statewide. That's available under the Music Friendly Communities box on texasmusicoffice.com, and I encourage all of you to read it, and I'll provide it for any press who asks for it, because I think it pretty well sums up our entire philosophy about forming these music-friendly communities and doing things like being here with you today. Times are getting harder, and there's more opportunity in the music industry today than ever before, right? We all live in cities. San Antonio is absolutely an example of this, of cities that are on the grow, they're on the rise, right? Everywhere you look, there's a Crane, or there's a new restaurant going in, there's a new place for folks who are upwardly mobile to live in places they never would have lived 10 years ago, right? And what's next door to those things? A recording studio, a music venue. Why? Because that made those places cool. That made those places desirable for folks to move in and feel like they were plugging into a cool part of the community. I lay that out here, and we'll get into that. It is absolutely vital, as these cities continue to grow, that we put together some parallel, streamlined, intentional forms of communication between the creative class, industry professionals, so they can quantify themselves and their impact to a city and form easy to recognize lanes of communication from that community to city government so that we can get about the business of creating law enforcement, common sense law enforcement, common sense permitting, and understanding of the permitting process to those folks who are in the creative community, and a clear understanding of what those needs are from one community to elected leadership. All right, so we'll start moving through this program here, because I know the Soundgarden guys have an incredible study they'd like to show to you, and I don't want to hog all the time. So next one here. All right, here's some key benefits. We're just going to run through these real quick. These are sort of just bedrock philosophies that cities around the world use to better the chances of the creative community from going away in their city. All right, next, you're going to have to click through each one of these one by one, so go ahead and just lay them all out. Okay, so we know that music plays a vital role to an economy, right? How much of a role, we won't know until we quantify it. We need to create economic impact through communication, internally and externally. This provides a boost to music tourism. So cities use you guys to sell themselves to conventions, to new business coming in, right? They don't always do a great job. They could do a better job, which makes your city more desirable for these folks who are going to come in and make the economy continue to bloom here, right? Now, they shouldn't do this to take advantage of you. You should be in partnership with them to do this. You want your city to be an international destination, but you want them to tell your story in a way that's accurate, right? So the better job you do of telling your story to them, the better job they're going to do of telling your story to the rest of the world, right? And that's going to create a bottom line bump to the city and to you guys, hopefully. Brand building goes hand in hand with that. You know, cities that have done a good job have put themselves on the map by saying, we're the live music thing. Austin's a prime example of that. This will help the cities create a more 360 comprehensive brand that they can use to share with the rest of the world. And that's a good thing for artists who choose to participate in that. Cultural development and artistic growth. You know, you look at major cities, there is not a major city in the country that in some way does not support their fine arts programs, right? And most of those programs, and I'm just saying the fact here, I grew up in fine arts and I understand that they're vital to a city's cultural growth, but if the funding that was provided by the city went away, they would not survive on box office receipts alone, and we understand that. These venues we're talking about, and these incubators, if you will, for talent that make a city so vibrant, don't exist in that same paradigm. They need every cent that comes through their box office to survive, and the city ought to invest in that, even if it's just through communication at the beginning, which is why we're trying to build this program. All right, next one. Yeah, well, I've hit on this. The music industry and the Soundgarden guys are going to absolutely lay this out in black and white for you. The music industry impacts the economy of your city, right? It's important culturally, but in order to gain respect of elected leadership in a new way that's actually going to provide some long-term benefit, you've got to speak in economic terms so they continue to value you and respect you as an industry. Strengthening the social fabric is exactly what we're doing here today, right? By creating a nonprofit, or by using existing nonprofits to bring people together to hear these sort of ideas, you're strengthening the social fabric of your music industry. You're bringing folks together who have never been in a room together in the same way, and you're doing it over and over and over again to create collisions that are going to help your careers, help your jobs, help your networking, and help your communication, right? You're going to be able to come up with core principles and ideas that you can distill down to one or two and filter them through your representative, your music liaison, and they're going to take those to elected leadership to help you have some impact. If all of you stood on your tables right now and started screaming towards City Hall about the things you were bothered by, that door would shut, because that's not a way for them to hear an argument. So think about that. Think about strengthening your social fabric, coming together, having real conversations about what you need, distilling those down and filtering those up. All right, Steve, next one, buddy. All right, key strategies. So we're going to talk about how you actually, once you've decided to become a music-friendly community in name, as we're defining it, how you go ahead and do that. You can just add all these to the screen. Okay. The very first one that's sort of tougher to do, but it's vital, and we've learned these lessons in. You can look these up online. I'll happily provide the information. Amsterdam, London, Adelaide, Toronto, Seattle, Nashville. Establish a single point of contact. I'll add Austin to the list because they've done this now too. Now Fort Worth has too. Add a single point of contact for your music industry to city leadership, to the city government apparatus. Empower a music officer liaison to absorb these concerns that you're going to distill down in your committee meetings, your nonprofit hosted meetings, and that person is going to help this community define itself and distill those concerns down into priorities. All right. That person is going to help. That person is going to help this community navigate city policy. As venues wrestle with ordinance enforcement, this person should be their first call when they begin to address these issues. If they've received complaints, tickets, they're rubbing with development, etc. This person's vital to creating a music-friendly community. Music officer, music office. We're letting the community define what that means. Austin, in their economic development department, has created the ATX Music Office, for example, and they have a single officer. Denton has empowered a member of their city economic development team to serve as the music officer. Fort Worth has empowered someone from their CVB to serve as their music officer. It can be done different ways, is my point. All right? That person's going to have to lead the strategy to take the music industry forward. They're going to have to develop the economic impact study, right? They're going to have to work with nonprofits to put those together. They're going to develop key priorities that and goals that they need to achieve for the music industry and report those back. The advisory board or council can look just however the community wants to put it together. I'm going to run through a couple of different city examples. So Toronto has a Toronto Music Commission, right? That's an elected board, and those people have a quarterly meeting where anyone can come and voice concerns. They distill those down, they report those to their music officer, and up it goes. Austin does a very similar thing. Austin Music Commission meets, I think, quarterly, and they sit and they filter their concerns up, etc. That's a way to funnel down the concerns with the community to that music liaison. They provide a meaningful forum for people to share their thoughts and concerns and come together and speak in a way that can be distilled down, so it can be focused to elected leadership. All right? Our engagement's a tough thing for a city that is not used to doing this to achieve, but it's something that is absolutely essential. Go ahead, Steve. All of us work for a living. All of us work in a difficult industry to make a living in, so you're busy, right? You get up every day and you think about how you're going to make your business work for another day, and it's really difficult to carve out time for anything else, and I understand that. But you have to look at the bigger picture, and you've got to find a core group of people, industry professionals in your community that you can pull together. And the nonprofits involved, the music advisory boards involved, and music liaisons have to do a good job of creating this type of interaction possibility, right? As often as they think it's possible. It does get the community talking, and it's absolutely essential. Not everyone's going to make this meeting every single time, but the more you have them, the more people get together, you start recognizing people and what they do, it does change things, absolutely. Yeah, talk about what we're talking about here. You know, when you meet with other professionals, you go to a music store, you go to the studio, you go to your classroom, you go on and on. Talk about the concepts that we're talking about here. Get it out there amongst the professional community. Don't be afraid of sounding like a bureaucrat, like me. You can spread this message that we're going to talk to one another, and we're going to try, via talking with one another, to make our situation better and actually contribute to it. And here's how we're going to do it, right? Yeah, you know, I find it difficult that I have to say this, and we all know what I mean when I say support each other, but do we really know what that means, right? Every single community is populated by people who are doing their own thing in their own way. We're not always fans of one another, but that doesn't mean that we're not all kind of working towards the same thing in one way or another. Unless you just got a bad actor, and we know those, okay? I will freely admit that bad actors exist. Support one another. Go see each other's shows. Talk about what your friends are doing. Share what they're doing on social media, etc. Don't be afraid to come to these things and bring your friends along. Support what your friends are doing. Make your community a stronger, more interactive place. So, you know, get out of your shell. You know, meet people who are doing things that maybe you're not a country music fan, maybe you're not a rap fan, maybe you're not an EDM fan, but those people who are professionals in those genres are doing the same thing you're doing in their own way. So support them. It's no different. You know, singer-songwriter is no different than. So keep that in mind when you're moving forward. We're not necessarily more important than one another. Different levels of success possibly, but we're all, if we get on board together, can all pull this thing in the same direction. So just keep that in mind. Yeah, so here's the fun thing that we're trying to do at the Texas Music Office. We think that these core principles and strategies and benefits that I've just gone over are pretty self-evident, right? You can research this online and find 10, 15, or 20 really smart people around the world who have said things exactly the same way I've said them because I stole that stuff from them. Because it's right. It's absolutely correct. You can muse about these things and write them down on a piece of paper and say, okay, we should all do these things. And it's true, and then you can find folks around the world who have actually written about them in a very scholarly way, and you ought to go check it out, because they sound a lot more intelligent than I do, but they're all saying the same thing. We, at the Texas Music Office, want to build a network of folks who understand and internalize these principles, right? They create their office. They create a nonprofit. They begin the process of seriously engaging the community. They create lines of communication for their creative class to elected leadership, and they perfect their model that works for San Antonio, that works for Fort Worth, that works for Lubbock, that works for Houston. And then we pull those things together and we grab those liaisons at the top and we sit down in a room together and we say, okay, all of you representatives from these different cities, what are our core concerns statewide that we're dealing with? How do we make Texas a more interconnected network with each other? How do we distill top-level concerns that we can help with on a state level or a federal level when it comes to some songwriting things that we deal with? How can we affect change together? And more importantly, how did you mess that up, right? Austin, how did you mess that up? What could we have done better, and how do we avoid those mistakes, right? How do we get to where you are today without going through the heartache? What does best practice mean, right? What does best practice mean? It means that there are defined principles we can all agree on because they've been tried over time, right? Other cities around the world have adopted these strategies because they make sense and they're saving their creative community. And that's what we're going to do here. And we need statewide communication between these folks who are all working on the same thing. Attend this workshop. You're doing it, right? I travel around the state and I say the same things to rooms like this around the state to start this momentum going within the city so they can create these offices and create these studies. You'll be heartened to know you're about to hear from some folks, and Crystal, again, you're pretty far down the field to getting that certification. You're not starting from scratch. You're not at the starting line. I'm excited for them to tell you what they've been working on, but now it's time for you guys to start weighing in and having your community weigh in too and get involved. Establish a single point of contact. We're going to talk about that. Create the ecology study, how music affects your community. That's a combination of the economic impacts in black and white and what it really means for brand building and tourism building. You have to conduct that study. You guys are going to hear about that here in a second. What's good for us, what helps the Texas Music Office do our jobs better, is we create a document, a memorandum of understanding, that clearly lays out our relationship to this liaison, this entity. I talked earlier about the resources available. We have thousands of points of data on our website, right? And they're in black and white on our website. I can search through it and I can see all these points in black and white. And I know that we've pulled all these things together by sitting in an office in Austin and calling people and researching and having our poor interns pour through it and pour through it, pour through it to keep it accurate. But that doesn't mean that we know the community that I'm standing in any better than you do. In fact, I would contend that all of these communities know the data that I'm putting in my website a lot better than we do or should. And so this memorandum of understanding lays out that the cities are going to conduct a business inventory and put together a database of their very own that they're going to share with us. We're going to agree on a timeline and the best practice for how to do that. But that means our data gets better. That means folks who are searching for professionals in San Antonio are going to have a much, much better shot of hitting the people who are actually involved, who are actually moving that machinery forward. And I'm going to feel a lot better about that data statewide once communities are giving it to me versus me going to get it from the communities. And not even the communities, individuals along the way in the thousands, right? Folks, I don't know personally, but I'm going to get to know them because the city is going to tell me about it. And we're going to create that network. And that's going to be something that makes the Texas Music Office a much more meaningful and relevant data point for folks who are looking for industry connections. All right. We're going to show up and help you do these things, okay? We're not kicking this thing off the dock and saying swim, right? It's not important to me in 5 years if I have a bunch of points on a map, right? That is not the point of this program. The point of this program is we create real communication, real networking, and real change for the music industry as a whole in the state. So that means I'm going to show up. My office is going to show up. If you need us, when you need us, when it's important for us to do that. We're going to help you engage. We're going to help you engage in different cities. We're going to help you engage at conferences you think are important, on and on and on. Bottom line there is, we're not going away once you fix your first couple little checklist points. We'll be here. Our office is always open for you. We will always show up. We're absolutely not afraid to travel, and that's exactly what we've been doing since I got into office. We've been traveling, and we've been sitting in living rooms, if you will. We're going to continue to do that. So look for us. We're here. If you need us, call us. We're going to help you engage. I believe that's the last one on this one. Yeah. So that's really the wrap-up of the Music Friendly Communities program. I think it is one of the more important things that the Texas Music Office is going to do in the next 5 or 10 years. I think that we will continue to work on business development. We'll continue to work on addressing concerns in the music industry, supporting it, talking to statewide elected leadership and federal elected leadership about key points that we need to fix, absolutely. But creating a statewide network of music-friendly communities that are actually doing good for their communities individually is going to change what this state looks like. And it's going to actually put us on the map internationally. It's going to elevate our position in the world, and it will absolutely be an example for others to follow. Crystal, thank you so much again. Thanks to all of you for being here. And I think she's going to take us to the next part of our program. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Brendan. So up next, Brendan did mention that we did have a study that was conducted by San Antonio Soundgarden, and I know that I see many familiar faces from the workshops that they did. So I'm going to bring up Adam Tudor, who really helped spearhead this study, and he's going to talk about the process, and he's also going to talk about the key data points that they found during this study. So Adam?
While it's loading up, I just want to take a moment for everyone to look around at the faces that are next to you, that are surrounding you in this room. These are the leaders in the music industry. These are people who have chosen to take time out of their lives to be here because they believe in what's happening. They see with an optimistic eye the work that we are doing together. And so I want to just encourage you, as you are here today, if there's somebody that you've not met yet, they're worth getting to know because they're here. And so please take that time to get to know one another and find out how you can build consensus together, because everyone here does something special. As Brendan was saying, no one is more important than anybody else, and it takes an effort from everybody here. So just wanted to acknowledge your presence. Thank you for being here. I want to say thank you to Crystal Jones and the Department of Arts and Culture with the City of San Antonio, Brendan Anthony, Texas Music Office. This is not possible without all the work that our city does and that our state does. So we are honored to be a part of this process. It began about a year ago, and we'll dig into it. I'm pinching myself to see you all here today and to be able to share this. So it's an honor to do that. Let's jump on in. So this is Music Study and Why It Matters. So for those of you who don't know San Antonio Soundgarden, just real quick, this is our mission. We exist to unite and ignite the local music industry. What does that look like? That looks like providing resources, providing networking opportunities. Things like this will happen, providing exposure through different events, putting on shows, different partnerships across the city, as well as professional training. So these are things that through the work of the study, you guys are going to find out about. We're going to be parlaying the evidence we've found already into these experiences to continue our mission. So we're very grateful to be a part of that. Go ahead. So, as I mentioned, it takes a village. There were a lot of incredible organizations and individuals. I didn't have enough slides to put all their names on there. You'll find them on the back of the study at a few of your tables. But I definitely want to recognize, of course, the Department of Arts and Culture. We worked with the Musicians of Business program at UTSA. They have an incredible music marketing program. Dr. Stan Bernard is here. He and his team and his students. These are college students at UTSA who took time to be a part of this effort and did real work to help change their city. They're in colleges as part of building a pipeline for the music industry, so I want to recognize them. Some things that Brendan was saying come from, so Toronto Music Canada is an incredible organization that has set the standard for this work. So they came down over a year ago through Centro. We had an event. They came down, their leader came, Graham Henderson, and he said, this is what it takes to be a music city. That spark lit up in all of our eyes, and we said, wow, we have what it takes to do that. So they were an incredible part of the process as well. I want to honor them and thank them. Economic impact was gathered, so we went out and our friend, the city economist, Dr. Steve Niven from St. Mary's, he went out and gathered this information that you're going to find in the study about what does it look like on a GDP level, on a city level, as far as economic impact, the dollars and cents of it, the jobs that we have impacted through the music industry. He gathered that information, so now we have, as Brendan mentioned, the real scientific information that we cannot dispute as it's been presented in this way. These are facts that we have gathered together. So I want to thank him for his work. There were some key case study contributors, some voices from the music industry. So we did have some community feedback sessions. We also had some key individuals from around the city who represent different components of what we're doing. So those individuals: Aaron Zimmerman, Libby Day, Angela Perez, Damian Rodriguez, Mac Damon, and Diana Aravallo. These are wonderful leaders doing fantastic things in the city, and they lent their voice to the study, which you'll find out when you read it soon. So go ahead. Thank you. So this is where it all began about a year ago. Music Canada came down. We were inspired. We created a survey that was sent out to the music industry at large, and we said, we want to know what you guys are doing. What are you up to? What kind of business do you run? Who do you employ? What does that look like? Is it a local entity? Is it a national entity? What musicians? Where are you located? How much money are you making? What is the different levels of income, the different types of things you're involved in the music industry, so we can definitively say we know musicians are struggling in this area, or they're doing great in this area. How can we support them and identify those gaps, and then solutions to fill those gaps? So we sent out a survey. We developed a schedule for community feedback sessions. So in several districts across the city, we opened up opportunities for people to come together and voice their opinions. We said, no idea is a bad idea. What do you guys think needs to happen in the music industry? We began to consolidate that information. So throughout the spring, we did that. In February, we continued. Go ahead, on to the next one. So our final one we had in the spring of this year. And we took everything that we had gathered together and we said, okay, here's what you guys have said. Is this clear? Is this a recommendation that is a SMART goal? Is it sustainable? Is it measurable? Is it action-oriented? Is it realizable? And is it time-oriented? Okay, we did all these things together. We sat down, we handed out the big Post-it sheets. People put down their ideas, and everyone from across the way had great representation from nonprofits, from high school students, their parents, people who run music industry businesses, musicians from all areas of all genres in the city. So we feel really confident that we gathered a representation of the voice of San Antonio through these endeavors. All of that was consolidated then into recommendations, which you guys will find in the study we provided for the city to move forward with their strategic plan. So in the past couple of months, we closed down the survey, we gathered this information, we consolidated and said, here's what we think are the best recommendations based upon all the information we've gathered from the community, from this data, and from the efforts we've participated together with all our partners. And so we gathered that together, we put it into a study, which we're going to dig into right now. You guys will find that. There's a couple of them you can dig through while you're here to look at. We'll also make sure you guys get that after, when we say thank you, after the event today. So continue. Thank you. So this is an incredible number to me. A lot of people, we've looked at other cities and compared things, and we have realized that San Antonio is a lot closer to realizing our goals than we may have imagined. So almost $1 billion impact in the music industry in San Antonio. This is real hard data. This has been gathered, and this shows us, this was 2015 data and 2016 dollars. So this is what's going on in our city. So when people say, what is the value of music in San Antonio? You can quote this number and say, well, it's about $1 billion. And that's an incredible number. So continue on. The music industry study. So what else this showed was the jobs, the impact. So a lot of you work in the music industry directly, whether you are doing promotion, whether you are working full-time as a musician, whether you're an educator. All of these things go into that. People who run AT&T Center, these big events, all these individuals are part of the music industry. So almost 11,000 jobs employed in the music industry. This is a big one, and this is something that we were really struck by, that we want to parlay and talk about how we can change things around this. 80% of San Antonio music professionals have to earn 80% of their income from other areas. So essentially what that means is the music industry, as far as the performance industry, we're living in a diminished economy in that sense. So imagine if the individuals who are working at USAA had to spend 80% of their time working another job. How would they be succeeding? And doctors, these kind of, you do the math, how would their success be in their line of work? In that sense, I'm very proud of the work the music industry is doing. So considering the fact that we have to spend a lot of our time working other jobs as if we're performing musicians, I think we're doing pretty great. But imagine what we can do if we change that number to 50, 60%, lower that down. How does that impact the overall dollars and cents of what we just looked at? It's an incredible thing to think about. So these are the things that we found. 7% of performers listed music as a primary income source. So very few people, this connects to the previous data point. Very few people can consider music full-time, can surrender to that. I met someone today, he's here, Will Parker, he was at the Pearl playing music, and he said, I've surrendered to music full-time. And you get excited when you meet these people because that doesn't happen as often. And we want to change that. We want people to be able to perform music as their lifestyle. How do we make that happen? Okay. Performer-only respondents reported lower annual incomes. All of this is connected to how do we make sure that musicians are not just surviving but thriving in this economy. Thank you. So we also looked at where things are located in our city. So a lot of things are changing. A lot of things are blossoming within our city. We talked about the cranes that you see construction everywhere. Things are changing downtown, Southtown. This representation of how music venues are growing. What we've identified is, and a lot of this seems like common sense, around downtown, around Midtown, 2/3 of our venues are located in San Antonio, in District 1 and 2. All right, so a fraction of those, So a lot of families are starting to move downtown. A fraction of these venues are open to all ages. So there's very few in San Antonio that we have the privilege of bringing our young ones to experience that. That's how they get inspired. There's some amazing young musicians in San Antonio. They had the chance to go see a show with their friend who was in another band, and that's how they got into it. So these are important things to talk about. You'll see a theme arise around education, and how do we get our young people to be inspired and start that commitment right now, understand what it means to be in the music industry. 83% of our venues have a less than 500 capacity. So there is a dearth of venues of this middle size. So when a musician comes out and he can play Sam's, he sold out Sam's, okay, now what? I can't make it to the AT&T Center yet. I can't sell 10,000 tickets yet. Where are these in-between spaces that we want to identify? And so these are simple gaps that we're recognizing, and we have the data to say, is this a gap now? What can we do to provide for that? How can we reimagine spaces and places in order to transform areas into a facility that could be a 1,500, 2,000 spot venue where someone in between those stages can feel like they can rise up into that ceiling in San Antonio and not have to go elsewhere to play those type of venues. And that's great. We just continue. So the music education component. So a lot of the case study that you'll find in the study, there was consensus naturally, without any questioning around it. They said one of the most important things we can do is to educate our young people, is to build a pipeline for the music industry. How do we? That starts at elementary, that starts in middle school, that starts in high school. The same type of programs we're developing for STEM and these kind of things in our high schools, we need to make happen for the music industry. A lot of us that started out as musicians when we were younger just happened to be part of the band or the orchestra, and we had to find our own, volition to do that, and we had to go out and find those opportunities. What can we do to bring music industry professionals into the classroom and actually show this is what it looks like for me to live and exist as a musician? These are the challenges. This is how I face those challenges. Have performances, have training upon the actual business side of things. This is something that we know a lot of people are like, I got trained in the School of Hard Knocks, I got trained on the streets how to be a musician. Everyone has to do that. We believe otherwise. We believe that schools can take steps to do that, and we just have to sit down with the proper people, the superintendents, the different ISDs, and say, here's what we know about music, here's what we believe in, and what can we do to make this happen. So a lot of the programs only serve a certain age group. So there's a minimal amount of training for younger people. So you're talking elementary school, preschool. What are we doing to enliven their minds and inspire that sort of creativity at that younger age? So we know that is happening now. What can we do to make sure that music is integrated into areas that are not just at the high school level? Okay. A lot of these organizations are happening in private. Again, this is kind of reinforcing the point that public schools don't often have as many dedicated music programs as our nonprofits, as private entities are having to take up. We have some great programs in San Antonio, a lot of schools that are doing good things throughout the city, but they're struggling for funding, and you'll find that out as well in the study. These are things that we realize there's a lot of competition out there in the nonprofit world. How do they do their job and support? So we need to put more energy into conversations with the public sector and say, what can you do to help provide and answer this call? So we can carry on. So this is the work. There's a lot more. We did this process over the past year, so a lot of energy went into this. I would be remiss. There's this beautiful gentleman standing over here, the founders of San Antonio Soundgarden, Edwin Stevens and Noah Breeden, incredible visionaries who have said that we believe that we can be a community-oriented nonprofit that can help serve the music industry in a powerful way. So we are grateful. We are honored to be here. I want to echo, I was really inspired by Brendan's words about building consensus and coming together and raising each other up. We have the opportunity right now to inspire one another. When we hear people decrying and saying San Antonio is cliquish or San Antonio is this or that, we can support our beliefs now and say, well, actually, we believe otherwise, and let's do what we can to build consensus. So please take that upon yourselves. Please believe in the work that we're doing. Please follow up with us if you have questions. Support us, support the work of Texas Music Office, Department of Arts and Culture. Things are moving forward in San Antonio. We're honored to be a part of that. So thank you so much.
Okay, we're almost done. I only have 3 slides. And also, I forgot at the beginning, we do have snacks over here. So before you leave, please grab some. I should have said that at the very beginning. All right, so what do we do next? as we discussed, as Brendan discussed, these are the 5 criteria for the Texas Music Office. And if you look at those check marks, that means that San Antonio is well on its way. We have already done the workshop. You're here, yay, check. And then the designated city music office liaison. So just so you know, my title with the Arts and Culture Department is Film Commissioner. I do run the film office, but I will be adding the music commission to my list. So that will be an additional. Thank you, and I'm so excited to be here. My boyfriend's a musician, so this is very passion for me as well. I'm excited to be here. I'm excited to be your liaison. I have my cards available. They all have my cell phone. You can contact me at any time. I'm here at your service, and I'm really excited to move forward together on this project. The Musicians Music Resources Directory. We already have a directory that we use for film and other components, but there's a module that we can open up for music that really makes it easy for us. So we're going to be launching that directory in the next couple of months. And we have your contact information. We'll be sending that out through many different avenues so that you can get listed. I'll talk a little bit more about that. The demonstrated partnerships with music nonprofits, we do that already through our arts funding, through our Department of Arts and Culture, but this study is also an example of a nonprofit collaboration that the city has done, so check that out. And then also collaborate with music education programs. And the next slide, we'll go over our music advisory board, which we've already established, and we'll talk about who's on that board, but we definitely have a wonderful education component entailed in that committee. So the committee that I discussed, we have an arts commission, a San Antonio Arts Commission, and these are leaders in our community that have been designated by their city council representative and our mayor, and they represent all of the different districts and of course all different facets of the arts and culture organization and the arts and culture assets in San Antonio. There's separate committees in that Arts and Culture Commission, and one is the Music Committee. So as you see here are our 11